Hello. Welcome back to school. Okay, so this is gonna be a Latin homework update stroke what we've been doing in class. So we had a kind of a wonky Latin week because we've just had a wonky Latin week. On Wednesday, we didn't get a lot of time because Magister had other obligations that kind of popped up on him at the last minute or within a day. So, and then Friday we didn't have class because Magister had, he's got some other stuff going on. And then on top of that, it was holiday. So he says, well, instead of totally not holding class, let's see if we can move class to Thursday. So we did that. So we had a pretty decent class on Thursday. There's a lot of work that I did on Thursday, like a lot. So on Wednesday, we had a really shortened Latin class. So what we did was we just went through the grammar. We reviewed the grammar for lessons 1, 2, and 3. We reviewed the numbers. We reviewed, we read this thing, which is pretty interesting. It talked about how families worship and stuff, which is pretty interesting. And then, we didn't really go through the vocabulary words because we did that at the start of the lesson when we started this lesson. And then, since we've already completed all the readings, on Thursday, since we had done everything, let's see, is that filled in? Yeah, that's filled in. Since we did all the grammar stuff, and I hadn't really done any homework, on Thursday he says, well, instead of starting a new section, because you haven't done any homework, I've had a lot of stuff going on, so it's not just that I haven't done homework. I've just had a lot of outside stuff going on. But instead of, just moving on to the next section, he says, well, let's do your homework right now, and we can do it together, and we can see how far we get. Okay, sure. So we did this on Thursday, on the 3rd, and he did have me write out the answers. I think partly for writing's sake, and then partly too, he knows that I don't like to have blanks in my thing. But then it's I was hoping that we would just do this orally, but he had me write out something. He does say that these should be in complete sentences, but given the time and stuff, he says, well, you just write out, a couple word answers or whatever, instead of writing out the whole thing. But ideally, he says he should be written out in full sentences. I'm ouch. Yeah. So I'm thinking probably when we move into more advanced stuff, he'll start requiring more complete work. So this one, we did take a break between, what is that, lesson 3? I think that's lesson 3. I can't read that. Let's see, what lesson is that? No, that's lesson 2. We did take a break, which is good, because, yeah, this is a lot of hard work. So, we took a break, and then we came back, and we resumed the rest of this. We completed all this. This was all vocative. He says, this is, probably going to be the most easiest section of everything that you've done. And it was. So, that was done. This, I think, was more kind of like vocabulary stuff. So again, we did these orally, but I filled them in as we were working them out. And here's another one, which is dealing with, I think these were dealing with endings of the imperative, imperativus, and the indicativus, indicativus, something like that. So that was that. So that was a nice little review. This one, again, was more of those ones you should probably write out full sentences, and I just wrote out like a couple word answers. Some of them I didn't even write out. Oh, I just wrote out none. And then here, so that got us pretty much caught up to that point to the end of lesson 2 or 3. I don't even know how many lessons were in that book. I think there's only 2 lessons in there. Wow. I didn't know that. I don't know. Or maybe they didn't have anything for lesson 3. Because this is a grammar lesson. Okay. So, the grammar lesson, I had to do that on my own. He had asked that I do that while he was away. He had a meeting to attend at a specific time. So he says, work on this while I'm at my meeting. And yeah, so that's what I did. I tried to be a good discipula, or a bona discipula. There's nothing on that page. Okay, so that pretty much covered everything on the 3rd. So then, on what day is this? This is on the 5th. So I filled this out thinking that I was going to do it because I like to do my homework in sequential order if I can. Like these written stuff. Well, that didn't happen. I started looking at this and my brain just like totally like went fried. Like it just said no. I don't know what is required of me. I'm not going to do it. And it looks like a lot of thinking. And we're not going to think right now because I don't have enough energy to think because I haven't got my sleep. So, that section did not get done. But I did do the pensa. I did work through the pensa. So pensum A was pretty simple, I guess. There's a couple I just kind of like ran over. Like my brain just like was not going to take in anymore. I didn't get to pensum B because I looked at it and I was looking at like, oh no, there's no like word list or anything on the side. So it's kind of like, I don't know these words. But I'm going to have to sit down and look at this when I have more like thinking power because this is just, it's vocabulary and I need to have a little bit more rest and sleep than what I've got right now. Pensum se or che ke is again those questions that you're supposed to write out in complete answers or complete sentences. That did not happen again. And if you look closely, there are a couple German answers in there, which is like way off the rails. I couldn't think of how to write it in Latin, so I just wrote it in German instead. And yes, this does happen in Latin. Like if we're doing like vocabulary review or something, and he says like, I don't know, like money. And if I can't think of the Latin word, I will say Geld or das Geld or something. Or like we're doing numbers. We were reviewing the numbers, and he says like 9, like the number 9, and I says 9. And he's like, try again. And I had to think like, well, what is 9? It's 9. and I can't think of what it is in Latin. And he did say, like, if you think of like the end of the month, like September, October, November, December, those like without the burrs at the end, I guess those are the Latin numbers, like Septem, Octo, Novem, and Decem, I think are the Latin numbers for 7, 8, and 9, and 10. So that pretty much covers that. I will have to, I guess, think more in Latin than in German. But I thought that was kind of funny. I just like wrote answers out in German because I couldn't think of the Latin answers. I'll see what Magister says about that. The last thing on here, which I didn't get to, is Pensum Day, which I found off the internet somewhere. I don't know where. I'm sure if you type in like LLPSI Pensum Day or Lingua Latina Pensum Day, something's gonna come up. There's a whole bunch of PDFs and videos that go with this. So I'm gonna see if we can do this together in Latin class when we meet next week, because I kind of like to do these with Magister because it kind of, to me, these things remind me of the what are they called? The grammar questions for the Form Latin book that we're kind of taking a break from right now. That's what these remind me of, and it's kind of fun to just do those with Magister. So we'll see how that works out. If he wants me to do them on my own, then I'll do them on my own. But I would prefer if I could do them with Magister, but I understand if he wants me to do them on my own. Okay, so that pretty much covers everything up to Latin in the sense of written work. I have, whoa, that's my finger, sorry. I have completed the, what are they called? I've got these like the grammar tables, like the verbs and the nouns and the adjective declensions. I've got those that I've been working through, and I got those pretty much completed up to the current lesson. Like, some of them I've been adding to, and some of them I've literally had to start a whole new table because it's a new verb, or it's a new noun or something. So as we're going through these chapters, I'm writing out the tables, and as I learn the different cases, I will go through and I'll write out the proper things for the different cases. The flashcards, I'm in the middle of writing out the flashcards for Capitulum Quator. I think my marker is dying and I need to get more markers because, yeah, my marker is dying. And I don't like to write when my marker's all dying because then it looks all messy and I can't see it well, and it's just a mess. So I've started those, but I need to get more markers that I can write with that won't bleed through. I've got Sharpies, but I think they're going to bleed through, and I don't want to try using a Sharpie if they're going to bleed through. But I might have to go that route and see what happens. But that's kind of where things are at right now with Latin. Next week in Latin, this is going to be interesting. This is going to be very exciting for me because I've never really done this before, and I think it'll be interesting for the both of us. So we're kind of like in the halfway point of what we're working through with the Lingua Latina, and I think what we're gonna do, like, I was sharing with him like what my arithmetic looks like in Braille, and he was like really fascinated by it. He's like, well, I could never do that. And I was like, well, it's really easy. And then I asked him if I could teach him how to read Braille. Not like full on reading Braille, but to like teach him like the basics of how Braille is composed. and bring in like a copy of the Bible. um that would no. That's 18 volumes. That's not gonna work. But if I bring in like one of the Braille volumes of the Bible, I think he might really appreciate that. um and then like bring in like, I don't know, like bring in like a little bit of music. And I mean, he's not gonna be able to read any of it, but just to give him a little bit of a appreciation. And I got a really cool idea of of how I'm planning on teaching him. So I'm hoping to give him not, I would say, like an experience, like something he will never forget. Because if you do something and you don't know what you're expecting and you go through it, it's like a good thing. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But so I'm gonna teach him about Braille, and hopefully it'll kind of give me an opportunity to share something that I know with Magister, and hopefully it'll kind of help me with, getting out of my funk, because I'm in a funk. I've been in a funk for a long time, which isn't good. I just had a lot of stuff outside that hasn't been very helpful towards my studies. It's actually been very, very distracting, and it's hard to focus because I've got all this other stuff going on. And yeah, but I don't want to not do my studies because they're good and I'm learning stuff. And Magister says that I should stick with my Latin even if I'm not singing in the Latin choir. He says you should still learn Latin for learning's sake, because it's good for your brain and all that good stuff. So yeah, I will have to continue with my Latin. I'll have to continue with my arithmetic. I'll have to continue with organ. I'll have to continue with everything, because everything that I'm doing is good. It's good and beautiful, which we need more good and beautiful in the world. Please like, share, and subscribe, and don't forget, ring the notification bell for all notifications.